So we needed some camera equipment, and GoPros just made sense. They're small, they're mountable to anything, they're hard to destroy. Lastly, the thing with GoPro is the motion stabilization is second to none. It's probably about the best you can get without resorting to a hardware gimbal. We bought one each, and seemingly one of every accessory you can get. So before we start, a little disclaimer. This is based on what we film. This might be different for you, and some of the things which we completely dismiss might actually be the perfect tool for the job for something you want to film. So in no particular order, here we go. Now this is good for sticking the GoPro on a backpack strap. It's a little fiddly to get on there, unfortunately, but it'll hold it on there quite securely and get alright footage while you're walking. It's also useful on the rear tyre Maxtrax holders. You can slide that under the strap that goes all the way around the tyre to easily mount a GoPro on there. It's also good for a few other things. What it was originally made for though was to clip it onto a baseball cap, which... There's a reason you find this one in the discount bin.
Surprisingly useful, but quite fiddly. I give it a B.
Now, next up. I call this one the flat plate. Where the heck did you get one of those, you may ask? I bet you actually had one of these at some stage and you threw it out. It's the bottom section of the top part of the box, which your GoPro was in when you bought it. Rip it off the cardboard that it comes attached to, and it actually gives you a nice flat plate for if you want to put the GoPro down on a flat surface. I'm actually using one for this workbench shot you see right now, just holding it on there with two gluing clamps. Works brilliantly for that sort of application, and it's free.
Something you didn't know you had, unless you bought a GoPro 9, in which case you don't. B.
The dual battery charger. It holds two batteries, it charges both of them. It's really handy because you can have two charging while you're filming with the other two, and it doesn't tie up the GoPro plugged into something to charge them. There is just one downside. It charges slower than the GoPro. It does take about 2.5 hours to have both batteries full, whereas I'm pretty sure if you've just got the GoPro plugged in, it's about an hour. And it doesn't do the DJI style thing of charging one then the other, so that you've always got one fully charged. Charges both slower. In fact, I think actually even if you just put one in, it takes 2 or so hours to charge it. I generally have this thing in the glove box plugged into USB power, just always charging them, so that you then just swap the other two over when they become low. And with two in this one, two in the cameras and another spare, generally don't have problems with batteries going flat.
Although it's slow, not tying up the GoPro to charge batteries is definitely useful. A.
We can slide a GoPro mount in there, we can mount the camera on it, and then we can just clip that to any object, flat, square, round, and that will firmly hold it in place. Also, that is quite painful. It will very firmly hold it in place. But there's a little feature that it isn't really made clear how to use it in the instruction manual. Suppose we wanted to clip it onto a metal bar like, say, this one. We can clip it onto the metal bar. It's not really on there for any definition of clipped on. Oh, well, that's what the pivoting jaws are for. Sure, you say, but that's pretty precarious. Comes straight off again. Well, see the little rubber strap here? Squeeze the jaws, pull out the rubber strap. Put it in there. Now, pull the strap. Just being careful I don't whack that side into the screen. And now that is on there with the strap. This is of course in shot because the GoPro is in fact that wide angle. So we just pass that through here and down there, and there we go. Can attach it to a lot of things. We've attached it to the bull bar, we've attached it to the side mirrors, we've attached it to quite a few things. It's just not as generally useful as a lot of the others.
It's a pretty useful accessory, but it's expensive and there's just not that many situations in which you'd actually need it. B.
Now, although we rated the GoPro clamp as solidly B tier, it does come in the box with something which I would have to rate is, C. Very solidly C. So this looks like it would be useful. Of course, using the bendy pole with an accessory which takes a GoPro clip mount allows you to do a bunch of shots which make absolutely no sense whatsoever. But this is the thing, it's one of these, like those bendable tripods. But the thing is that it's got the same problem every single other one of these has. Under a high vibration environment, it just slowly bends. Maybe it's good if you want to get like static shots, say on a workbench, it'd be really good. And I mean, I guess that's what it's kind of intended for. But it's a GoPro, it's kind of intended to be used in a high motion, high action environment. So shipping something that doesn't really work with that is it's C tier.
Being not that great in a major situation where you'd use a GoPro gets it a C.
Now hang on, you're saying, this is a microSD to SD adapter. What's that doing in the D tier? They're perfectly useful, they're perfectly good. How else are you going to read a microSD card in an SD reader without soldering wires to it or something? Well, here's the thing. I don't hate the device. I hate the fact that I need one. Now, sure, you say, the GoPro has a USB. When you plug it into the computer, it shows up, but it shows up as one of those dreaded PTP devices. It's not really a very good PTP device either. On macOS, it barely works with half the apps out there. On Windows, it shows up as a normal drive, but the big problem is, even if it does work, and it's randomly flaky, it occasionally just errors out halfway through copying a file. It's just really not very fast, even when it does work. It's not even like maxing out USB 2 speeds. It doesn't even come close to it. So you end up just pulling the card out and putting it in one of these to put it in the card reader. So the concept of having to use one of those gets a D tier, but the actual device in itself is very useful.
Having to use one of these to quickly get the footage off the GoPro gets this a D.
Alright, so we've got this weird thing. This weird thing is a chest mount for the GoPro. So you put it on awkwardly like this. Now we grab that round the back. That on up there. Now, not only does it look even more ridiculous than the head mount, it's somehow even less comfortable. Oh. And so that just came off for like no reason at all. It's even less comfortable to wear. And the weirdest thing is, no one's really ever seen chest mount footage, so they think it's head mount footage with your hands coming out the side of your head. It just doesn't look right. And that's a really big problem. In addition, if these straps are too loose, the thing flops downwards repeatedly, ruining the footage. And if these straps are too tight, every time you move your arms, this thing wants to migrate further up here until it's just under your chin. And that's all I'll say about that.
Sometimes useful, but not quite as much as the head mount. C.
Now, the sticky plates. You got the squarish curved one for going on a curvy thing, and the roundish flat one for going on a flat thing. Pretty self-explanatory, but they're good, but they're permanent. No second chances, and you can't take them off the object that you're mounting it to, so temporary mounting is pretty much out of the question. In addition, if you do put them in the wrong place on the outside of your car, they'll make horrific whistling noise as you drive down the road, and well, certain surfaces, the adhesive just doesn't stay, so yeah.
These are the quintessential GoPro mount, but you only get one chance at placement. B.
We have the RAM mount to GoPro. This one fits in something that mounts a GoPro, like the clamp, and turns it into a RAM mount ball. So I could go and put a phone holder or the ICOM 7100 head on this, and use this without having to go and buy the RAM mount version of all of accessories like this. Now, if you have the RAM mount version of the accessories like this one might also be useful. And this is the opposite. It lets you mount a GoPro. Tolerances on these are just not quite right. But that gives you the RAM mount ball on your GoPro, and now if you've got RAM mount stuff permanently installed in your car, you can put the GoPro on it. Hands-free radio mount. What more could you want? Let's just look down. Doesn't look silly at all.
These bring a new lease on life to your GoPro accessories, making that expensive flex clamp useful for more things. B.
This one is called the Handler on the GoPro site. Has a nice foam cover, it floats. Big orange bit on the end that floats in the upwards direction so that you can see it if you dropped it into the water. Can act like a short selfie stick if you've got long enough arms. Has this wrist strap so you don't drop it, and you can shove it in the strap of the backpack for a quick mount that comes with you when you walk.
Nice to hold, minimalist, well balanced, and stops you from losing the GoPro in deep water. S, and everyone should have one.
The head mount. It's pretty good for you see what I see type shots, but it can be a bit awkward and it does kind of look silly. So tip, most people would think that you want to have it up like that so that the GoPro films straight forwards from the front of your head, because that will perfectly capture what you're looking at. That's actually not true. You actually want to have it at an angle more like that, because you will tend to just do stuff in front of you and below you while still having your head pointed fairly far up. So you can see that I'd be doing stuff like around here in that sort of context.
The other iconic GoPro mount, I give it an A.
Suction cap mount. This one is really handy if you're ever going to use the GoPro in a car. Put it on the inside of the windscreen, put it on the outside of the windscreen. It comes with several of this piece here, which lets you orient the camera kind of how you want. There's longer ones, shorter ones, sideways ones, and otherwise. So you can use this on the windscreen to film into the car, on the windscreen to film out of the car, on the outside of the car to film forwards, backwards, whatever. And in fact, the earlier shots you just saw in this video, I actually had this attached to the glass sliding door for the balcony. So it's really quite flexible. The only definite downside, if you've got a section on your windscreen that has like textured dots on it for tinting, usually up by the rear vision mirror, it does not stick there and will just randomly fall off. So the suction cap, so you can substitute it for this one. That one bolts the GoPro in directly. That one takes the quick release GoPro mount, so you have an extendable arm off it. That one is the quick release GoPro mount, but the other way round. That one mounts the GoPro directly the other way round.
If you at all want to use the GoPro in a car, this is extremely useful. A.
Unlike a lot of the other accessories where there's the official one and there's eBay clones, you will not find this one in the official GoPro accessories catalogue. The GoPro has a USB port, and you can in fact power the GoPro off it while it's filming. It won't charge while it's filming, but it will run off the USB port. But with the side cover on, it is of course waterproof, but you can't plug anything in. We have this side cover which fits on to replace the stock one. It is of course not waterproof. I would most certainly not recommend getting it wet with this on here, but it holds the battery in place while also allowing you to plug something into that USB port. It is a very intentional action to remove the battery. I'd say if you wanted to have it on a bike or a motorbike and you wanted to power it to do a really long shot or long time lapse from an external power source, but also didn't want the battery to fall out and get lost if you ran over a bump, this would be a good choice for you. This would most certainly be A tier if it was like the kind you could get for the older GoPros, where there was a cable integrated into it that was in fact waterproof.
Useful to extend the limited battery life without risking losing the battery. B.
The remote. It's a pain to use. It takes ages to connect. It's good for is it still on. It's good for when you've got the camera somewhere where you can't always reach it to start and stop recording. It's alright. If you had the camera on the outside of the car, it's kind of useful. It's good for knowing that you're still recording. Has a pretty decent range. And you can't use quick capture mode with the remote. It can't turn the camera on when the camera's off. This stupid thing. Why can't it just have a USB-C on the bottom of it to charge like literally everything else? Instead you got this dumb thing. So this one connects over Wi-Fi to the camera, but the thing is this one won't actually work with the new GoPro 9. There's a new remote which connects via Bluetooth Low Energy, works with a lot of the older GoPros, back to the 6 I think. It's got a much shorter range, but it connects quicker and can power the GoPro on from it being switched off.
It really should be better, especially given how much it costs. C, but I haven't tested the new one though.
The classic Selfie Stick. Now this particular incarnation came with a tripod bolt to GoPro adapter. I've actually got a genuine GoPro to tripod mount somewhere. Back when that was part of the official GoPro accessory catalogue, it's just been silently dropped. So, you know, extends out to form a very long stick, but with the GoPro on the end of it, it's pretty wobbly, pretty flimsy. Yeah, I know there's better selfie sticks available, but I think you can do better.
Cheap, flimsy, and generally rubbish. Just use something better. D.
Next up, the silicone sleeve. It's available in multiple different colours. We've got both a bright pink and black one here. There's only one real downside of it. And so you put this on here, and then you put the screw in. And let's just say we want to change either the card or the battery on this one. Well, now suddenly that's like, not only was that kind of difficult beforehand, that's like practically impossible. You literally can't unlatch it. And so you've got to take that out, take that off there, then pull the case off it, then you can open it up. And it's kind of not thought out very well. You can mitigate that somewhat by swapping it over to that one, which I don't know why that is not the one they include. If something hits it on the corner, it will just peel away, and so as a result this GoPro is chipped around the edge there. But it's not even on the glass, you can't see it in the shot, it really doesn't matter, it's just cosmetic.
Useful to avoid damage, except the one time I did, it didn't, so it gets a C.
So I've got just one question about this thing. What the absolute hell were they thinking? GoPro does not make a good set of knuckle dusters, and that's just weird. Yeah, what is it good for? And rotate the camera, and it looked cool on the box. Now the other thing you can do is it does come with this wrist strap, so you can put it on there, or you can put it on here. And I mean, I guess it makes it pretty hard to lose the GoPro, although I'm sure I'd find a way to damage it on here. And this feels like I'm getting my blood pressure measured. Maybe if you put it through the vent holes here, and then used it to temporarily mount a helmet cam, it could potentially be good for that, which replaces another discontinued GoPro accessory that does exactly that.
This one's a real solution looking for a problem, and not a cheap one either. D.
So the GoPro grab bag is a small set of parts which gives you the normal mounting buckle and the taller mounting buckle, as well as two of the stick-on plates, the curved one and the flat one, the swivel, and a long and short bolt. These two you probably got lying around. This one you probably got several of anyway, but primarily the most useful part of this grab bag will be this. Now this doesn't look like it'd be terribly useful. It's just one of these with a longer neck. If you were to attach this onto here, like so, and then you wanted to put the camera on here, suppose you wanted to lean the camera all the way back and have it parallel with this surface. Well, you can't, because that hits that there. So if you instead used the long one, this spaces the camera away from the connector, and now you can have it parallel, if not actually pointed up a little bit. This allows for a few extra possibilities while mounting things, lets you get things into angles that might not be as possible otherwise. This is the set of 90-degree adapters, so you can mount that to this, and then you can put this one, you can tilt that forward and back, which you can also tilt this. Oh, that was what I was looking for. So you can swivel it like that, and you can swivel it like that, and you can swivel it like that, or like that. This will get you out of some tricky, tight mounting spots, but in general, like that hits things, that hits things. It's frequently constrained by where you can actually put it, It will get you out of some tight mounting spots, but generally if you need to use it, think twice about how you're actually mounting it, and you'll find a way of doing it without them. So they do, like, getting this one, if you put a full bolt on that, to get it to be able to tighten hard enough, often you can't get in there. This one's a pretty big pain to get it tightened all the way, and it does just add more connections, which all wobble in a high motion environment, and even if the footage isn't visibly wobbling, the rolling shutter can sometimes interact with the wobble to get you some really wonky looking footage. So in general, I would say only use them as a really last resort.
Half stuff you already have, with pretty much just one very useful part, so C, but I'd give that part an A.
So the three-way. So it's a selfie stick, but also it's just a handle. And then also you can unscrew this end and screw it in the other way round, and then it's a little tripod. This one's handy, it's just a little less nice to hold, and it is a touch wobbly. This one's an eBay special, not the original genuine one, so maybe the original is a bit better. It's generally pretty good.
Does three things in one device, but just not quite as well. But well enough to beat carrying all three, so it gets an A.
This is what it looks like when you actually mount it on something, and it's a good permanent counterpart to the clamp mount. So with the GoPro mounted, that looks pretty good. Holds it quite securely. So this clamps on with a thumb screw that you do up, and there's two rubber pieces which can be swapped in there for smaller diameter bars. The only downside I've got is that it does convey a lot of vibration through to the GoPro, so you do hear a lot of noise on the recorded audio, and the picture can be pretty bumpy if you're going over bumpy terrain. The GoPro image stabilization generally does a pretty good job of taking care of that, but it can still lower the quality of your footage, so some people strongly recommend helmet cams instead.
A much smaller and more semi-permanent alternative than the very temporary flex clamp, but the angles can be a bit limited on this, so I'd give it a B.
Okay, so last and quite possibly least, the GoPro app. So firstly, not only does it require a subscription for features that used to be freely available within the app, about half of the app is dedicated to ads and prompts to tell you to purchase the subscription. We go to the camera. We've got the GoPro here. We want to connect to the GoPro. I said we want to connect to the GoPro. And there we go. So this works okay. There's a bit of latency, but it's generally usable as a viewfinder. But the GoPro is filming in landscape, so I want to see this in landscape. Well, you can't. There is no way to view this in landscape. In fact, we can have the settings menu in landscape, but then when we hit done, it goes straight back to portrait with the GoPro shot landscaped in the portrait window. Now the other thing is, this used to let you adjust the ProTune settings on the GoPro. Those settings are exposure, white balance, shutter speed, ISO, sharpness, and the camera beat level. Those settings mysteriously disappeared after an update sometime later, where the update notes actually mentioned that they were removing it, but talked about it like it was a bug. We haven't heard anything about it since, and while that's not terminally bad on the GoPro 8, and indeed most of them, because you can actually go and adjust those settings from on the camera itself, it's just significantly more annoying to do so. There is one fairly big problem. If you've got a Hero Session 5, it has no LCD screen. You can't ever adjust those settings again, thanks to that. There is a third-party remote app. It will cost you $10. Nothing against them, they definitely went to a lot of effort in writing that app, but it's just annoying that this feature was removed from the official app. If you start recording, and then you were to, say, switch to a different app, and the app happens to get unloaded by Android, you can't control the camera again, and you can't connect to it because it's still recording. If you record in H.265, which is required for 4K on the GoPro, it can't actually play your clips back on the phone. except that if you do download the clip to the phone, you can play it outside the app because this device actually supports playing them. So I don't know if all of this is really any better on iOS, but overall, it's still a really poor effort, even if it has improved significantly from where it was before. Lastly, one major complaint I've actually got about it is I had to refilm quite a significant part of the first segment because connecting back to the camera after I finished recording actually crashed the GoPro and corrupted a bunch of the recordings somehow, so losers points for that in my book.
Okay, so it's a lot better than it was in terms of stability, and I have to give them credit for that. But it's also lost a bunch of functionality, some of it behind a paywall, and some gone entirely. I'd have given it an F a year ago, but I'm still going to give it a D. A company this large and a device this expensive means the app really should be better than it is.
Lastly, I do have to say that you do get what you pay for. This is an eBay copy of the GoPro headband, and the elastic is a bit less stretchy, and this rubber strip isn't particularly grippy. It kind of slides off anything that's particularly smooth that you want to put it on, and the tolerances on these are pretty terrible. The GoPro is loose unless you do that up really tight. The screw slowly comes undone unless you do it up ridiculously tight, which, in addition to having a block of foam on your head, so that little bit of bone that points out the back of your skull isn't directly touching hard plastic placed in exactly the wrong spot, and these wavy lines of rubber which really keeps it in place a lot better. Still a bit loose. I don't know how. Must be like a metric screw and an imperial nut or something. And this wasn't even like that much cheaper than the genuine GoPro one, so by all means, if you think you're not going to use the accessory much, buy the cheap one, but there are definitely corners cut on the cheap ones. Next up, we continue with the story and bring you some never-before-seen footage of various adventures we went on, and we point out stuff that you just generally might not have noticed, giving you the backstory of the channel.